All right, everyone. Welcome once again to the Faces of Business. I am so excited today. I have got someone that I think in my world, in my circle of friends that I sit down with and have beers with once in a while, is the king of video. I've got with me today Mike Pennacchi. Mike, great to have you on today. So good to have you here.
Great to be here, Damon. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, it's so much fun because, you know, actually you're a longtime friend of my wife's. You guys went to school, grade school, high school, college, and
Yeah.
it's good stuff. But when we were sitting down a while ago and you were telling me about the video and the way that you were doing video training, I was like, man, we gotta talk about this. So it's awesome to have you on. So, Mike, tell us a little bit about your background and kind of, you've been doing this training a while. I'd like to hear a little bit about that and then kind of how this really evolved.
Well, I went to Washington State University, got a degree in management information systems, became a programmer, sat at a desk. And, it's funny how things kind of line up sometimes. A group of people started a Toastmasters club there. And I was about as afraid as anybody of getting up in front of a group and talking. And I joined Toastmasters and started doing these speeches. And then I got roped into, they said, hey, we're going to do this thing for United Way. Can you talk to a couple of people? Sure, I can do that. In like a little conference room or something. And next thing I know, it turned into Carco Theater down here in Renton. I'm talking to the entire company up with the CEO. And, my heart's beating out of my chest. But I found out, I kind of liked getting up in front of a crowd. That wasn't so bad. And I ended up moving and going to a company that's focused on network analysis, capturing network traffic, analyzing it, and started going to trade shows and doing classes there. We get 250, 400 people in one of these classes and started doing those. And from there, traveling around the country, doing training classes, teaching people how to capture packets, how to get to the root of network slowdowns. Had some interesting jobs over the way. After September 11th, a group of 5 of us went to the Pentagon and rebuilt the networks that were destroyed when the plane hit the building there, and troubleshot those problems and got things back up and running. So it's in 2002, I decided to, work for the worst boss in the entire world, and that's myself, and start my own company. So we're coming up on 19 years now that I've had network protocol specialists.
Wow. So I just, because I'm just I'm a nerd at heart. You know this already. So that had to be something when you think about how the Pentagon was compromised to rebuild the network, because you don't just know where a cable got frayed a little bit, where it's completely gone, where all that had to be a heck of a thing to go back in and fix.
Well, it was. And, like most organizations, people tend to only document things when they really have to. Yeah. And that's one of the things that, we've really had to go back, and my whole career has been reverse engineering things that, people will plug things in, they'll move things around, and they don't ever really document that. And then they also tend to build networks that really were never designed to be troubleshot down the road. And I kind of equate it to, screwing the hood closed on your car. They put the engine in such a way you can't get to the spark plugs. That they put these things together, they make them so convoluted that then when they break, they call in trouble and say, hey, we're kind of screwed here. Can you help us figure this out? And we know it, and we can't figure it out, but we want you to come in and figure it out for us, and immediately.
Wow, that's crazy. That's crazy. But I never thought of that until you said the Pentagon, about how ugly that had to be. It just flashed in my head with, mangled and this and that and stuff. Had to be tough. But I want to just say thanks, Kenneth. Glad to have you around today. Always good to see you when you're with us. And if you're listening on LinkedIn or Facebook, go ahead and drop your comments in, or if you got questions for Mike or I, just go ahead and drop them in the comments. We'll be happy to answer. So you're sitting here in 2002, and now you're gonna start training. You're gonna be training people in network analysis and troubleshooting like you do. At that time, that had to be you were getting on a planes and going to conferences and things like that, right?
Yep. In fact, the two analyzers that are sitting on the shelf up behind me, the first version of that had come out in 2000, and Fluke Networks up in Everett had released that. And I was talking to them. We'd been doing some work with them. I said, well, what are you doing for training on that? And they said, well, I don't know. Do you want to put the training together for it? We're not interested in doing it internally. So I put the training together and started going out and doing that. And what's kind of funny is I'm still doing it. This is the fourth revision of that product, and you can't even buy it anymore. So they don't even sell the product anymore, but they still offer training to their customers that are paying support on it. And so I do 4 classes a year on a product that I've been teaching on for 21 years. That product has gotten me to Southeast. I've been to Manila. I've been to Kuala Lumpur. I've been to Singapore. I've been to Bangkok a number of times. I've been in embassies, consulates, businesses all over the world, going in and doing training on that product. And it is And so I had 20 laptops. I had a few of these. I had hundreds of pounds of equipment that we were shipping all over the place. The UPS guy hated me because these cases of laptops weighed about 100 pounds each.
Oh,
and,
wow.
It cost a lot of money. And when you look at airfare, airfare going up and down, rental cars, hotels, a lot of money involved in going out and doing this. In addition, a lot of the classes were held in hotel conference rooms. And so you've got food. I remember I did one myself down in Tukwila, and I saw they were charging me $40 a gallon for coffee. And it's like no decaf. If someone wants decaf, they can go to Starbucks and buy it themselves. Paying $40 for a gallon of decaf that nobody's going to drink. But you start, I guess, a lot of large companies, that kind of stuff just kind of gets rolled up with everything else.
Yeah.
It's just kind of this accepted way. I go to these conference shows. I've been doing Interop, the trade show in Las Vegas, New York, Atlanta for the last 25 years. In fact, that was really where I got my start. As I went to their show in Atlanta in 95 and became hooked on protocol analysis. But what we pay, you go to get an extension cord put in, and you've got to pay an electrician $80 an hour to run an extension cord for you. And I found out you really don't want to run it without those guys because they'll come after you. And, but it was, there were a lot of expenses, and as a very, very, very small business, we couldn't, you had to watch all of those things.
Yeah. It's not like you're a conglomerate rolling it up into the, the margin error of the petty account somewhere like it is in a smaller business that's doing it. But those trade shows, I've done a few in Chicago with companies before, and you don't mess around. You don't mess around with and just plug something in yourself. That's for sure. No. So you're there, you're flying all over. I mean, you had to be on the road a lot.
Well, we were talking before this. Let me bring up this camera. So I just got in this habit of throwing, the hotel room cards into my bag when I got done and I left. And I just throw them in a box. And one day I started stacking them all up. And I looked at, this pile of cards that I've got in here. These are all room cards. And those those card keys, that wasn't just one night. I mean, in some cases, I was staying at a place 4 or 5 nights. Yeah. So I spent a lot of time. I had gold status on a couple of different airlines. When you get in, like with Alaska, you kind of like you sit down, and I always liked when they would come down the aisle though, and they'd go, thank you for flying with us, Mr. and they're looking at my last name, and you can see that. And they go, Michael, and I say, thank you. Yeah, that's cool. But there's the glamour wears off at some point.
Oh yeah,
being on the road all the time.
Yeah, I had a couple of years like that where I was platinum on the old airlines now, because it was before us, and thankfully it was a long time ago. But yeah, just because you get a set in front doesn't make the flying every single day of the year any better. That's for sure.
One of the things that really hit me is, before we got started today, we were talking about some of the yard projects I've been working on.
Yeah.
My wife and I were driving my Suburban with our trailer behind it down to go pick up some bark. And when we come over the hill on the top of the Kent Hill there, you look across and you can see planes taking off from the SeaTac airport. And it was a Sunday afternoon. And I could feel this tension in my chest of, how many times had I been driven, and it would be a Sunday, and I'd look at that and think, oh, I got to get on the plane. I've got a 6 a.m. flight tomorrow morning, and I got to make sure I check in. I got to think about waking up on time. I got to get to the airport and park. I got to get through security. And it was kind of strange to see that and think, I'm doing a class this week, but we're doing it online.
Yeah.
And so I don't have to get on that airplane. I don't have to worry about, I've gotten to Boston, no cars. It's like, really, how do you run out of cars? And didn't have a reservation. I feel like Steve Martin in Planes, Trains. I had a reservation. Isn't that the point?
Yeah. And that's just a gala. It's in the global travel that you did. I'm sure that's just a smattering of what can happen when you're trying to move, because you also had to move your equipment ahead of you. It had to be there ready to go. And sometimes I'm sure it was you were coming in the day before, and you needed that equipment the next day, and tough deal.
Well, and that's where one of the woman that works for me, Uta, or sometimes I wonder who works for who, but Uta and I have worked in California together. We've known each other for a very long time, and she is one of the most procedurally driven people I've ever met. And I mean, she does things a particular way, and and so when we knew that we were going to have to start shipping all this equipment and make sure that we had people signed up for the classes and that the hotels and all that, it just so happened that Uta called me, and we'd worked together before, and she said, I'm changing jobs. Can I use you as a reference? I said, absolutely. I'll tell them you're the worst employee I ever had. And she said, why would you say that? And I said, because you have to come work for me. And so she came to work for me. One of the local news stations did a little bit on her. She runs basically a hospice for animals with the South King County Humane Society. And she knits hats for kids that Mary Bridge, for kids that have cancer. So she does all these great things, but her superpower over the years has been making sure that our equipment ended up exactly where our equipment needed to be. And I know what my strengths are, and I know what my weaknesses are, and making sure that everything is lined up like that is really not my strength. And so having Uta there to keep an eye on all that, and also somebody that when somebody needs to get a hold of me, they always know that they can contact her, and she'll get a hold of me, and we can make whatever needs to happen.
Yeah, because that's kind of like if she calls you, it's the red phone. It's the number you answer.
Well, there was a hotel, and the hotel front desk person came in. They said, hey, Uta called, and you need to make sure to get this equipment out to the front desk before 3:00. And I said, hey, look, I'm trying to get it all together. I said, you call Uta and tell her just to hold on. He goes, I'm not calling her. He said, you can call her. She made it pretty clear the equipment had to be out there at 3:00.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. So here we go. You're running down. You've been doing this. You're traveling, and then all of a sudden you started to think about virtual training before COVID, right? You were thinking about it ahead of that.
In fact, I went down to do a class in Portland, and one of the things was it had a lot to do with the different salespeople we were working with. Some of this classes, I go do the class, and somebody would say, I'd say, so what brought you here? And they said, well, Peter told me I had to be here. So Peter, back in the Kansas City area, he would fill these classes up. And what he knew was that when we did the classes, it usually resulted in sales. That when people saw how to use the equipment properly, they went back and they knew what they needed to buy to be most efficient in what they were doing. But as time went on, it was getting harder and harder to get people to come into the class. And I looked at what was the overhead. There's this 2/3 of the cost of the class was shipping equipment and hotel and all that. And the one that really got me was we went to do a class in Portland, and I get there and there's one person in the room. So I had hauled all this equipment down, and that person worked for a company that they had a warehouse in Longview. So I said for the next day, I go, so why don't we just go to your company and just do the training? You and I will work on your network and do the training because it's just the two of us. But that's when it really hit me that, we need to get, not everybody within a particular area is ready to get the training, but people throughout the country and the world need the training as soon as possible. So by doing these classes in the hotel rooms and so on, it was nice. I miss the, seeing a person when I'm training, because I could look around the room and I could see when I answered that question, even if they didn't know they had it, I answered that question that they needed the answer to. And everybody always had one. And you could see that look on their face. It's like, that's it. That's what I needed to know. And I joked I should have a little flag I can set in front of you and say, okay, Damon, I answered your question. And finally at the end of the week, get down to that last person, what is it you need to know? And, so I started looking at, how could we offer training in such a way that if you bought a piece of equipment, you could get trained within a month, 2 months, and be using that properly. And that really, there's no way to accomplish that by traveling around and doing it. And companies really don't want to fly their people in to have them do it. So I talked to the company I was working with and I said, why don't we try doing this online? And we did it online. And we went from having 6 people show up for an in-person class to having 70 people sign up for the class and 35 people show up. And that particular class is offered for free to the customer. So there's no obligation to show up.
Yeah.
And
that's good. That's a good result.
Now we're getting 35 people. And what it allowed me to do is I did some classes on European time. So I'd go to bed like at 6 p.m., get up at 12:30 a.m., come out, I built. So it all started out, I was sitting at my desk doing it. And then I made some space out in my workshop, put up a green screen, started doing it out here. And then a couple of years ago, before COVID, my wife said, you know what? You got to step it up a bit. So we took and cleared out the workshop. I built just a little stage on about 2x4 high, carpeted it. We've got a grid up in the ceiling that's made out of 1.5 inch PVC pipe that we've got all the lights, cameras, the speakers, microphones, everything hanging from, and started getting it set up. So now I can walk out here. As you saw with that one camera, we've got I've got a multi-camera setup going. Yeah. So now when I go in and show somebody how to do something, we can show that piece of equipment. And, we can zoom in on, that piece of equipment, show exactly, what's going on with that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's something. That's something. Because as a technical person, I mean, first of all, companies may not want to send them, but second of all, they don't probably need that interaction one-on-one with you in the class setting. It's probably just as effective for them to see how it's done because they're sitting there with their own piece of equipment in their own place and they're doing it on their stuff, which makes it even better.
Now, the OptiViews that are on the top shelf back there, one of the things that we found with those is 26 people can access that at the same time. So what we do is we set up a couple of them and we send out an email to folks and we say, hey, before class, download this software. And then we configure it up so that they can access our testers through the internet. Because what I found is these things work so well through the internet that when I would travel overseas, I would leave them here and we would all remotely access them. So I didn't have to try and carry them through customs, and I could reduce the amount of equipment. So now everybody is accessing the same thing. And that's been a big important component of this, has been that we have the ability for them to click on things and look in there, but we can add some structure to it where the database I have on there, I know that database. It's not whatever their network happened to discover. So now we can say, let's go find this, let's go do this. And the exercises that we do apply for both the equipment that we have, and they can take it back and do those same exercises on their own network.
Yeah.
So a big part of our business has been doing certification training for Fluke networks. And this tester that I just brought up here, when you have a copper or fiber network installed, this is probably the premier tester out there for not probably, it is the premier tester out there for going out and certifying that. And we just did a webcast this morning on power over Ethernet. So if I'm powering access points, lighting, cameras, all kinds of telephones, I need to make sure that that cable is going to support it. When I'm running high data rate, applications across, I need to make sure it's going to support it. So what we do is we certify people on how to use that equipment to certify it. Well, for 12 years, 10 years, I had a guy, Dave, that traveled around and did these classes on site, traveled to different cities and did the training. And we had 6 Pelican cases weighing about 60 pounds each. So about 360 pounds of equipment that we were shipping all over the country. And it was good because people got to do hands-on training. So 2 years ago, I started thinking, what can we do online with this? And it just so happened that coincided with when I had a couple of wisdom teeth pulled out. And, at mid-50s, getting your wisdom teeth pulled out isn't nearly as fun as any other time in your life, I guess, unless you're 60 getting it done. So I had a little bit of downtime, and I started looking at, could I do to remotely access these testers? So I found an add-in, a guacamole module, or not guacamole, an Apache module called Guacamole. Okay. And what Guacamole allows me to do is create a web browser interface for these testers. And each person can access a tester. So I have a pool of testers that they access, and I can see the screens of the testers. So I can see what they're doing. They can follow through and do the hands-on exercises. So we were able to take that hands-on that they were doing in the classroom, and we were able to allow them to do that with a browser. And in fact, what it turns out is their phone, because it's got close to the same size display, works great. They can get to it with their phone. So now they see a video of me. They see the PowerPoint presentation. They've got a tester that they're using. So they're able to push all the buttons and do all that. And then we just put test results on there that they can review.
Wow. So you've been able to basically teach these people remotely and give them relatively the same experience of using the equipment themselves virtually.
Yes. Now there's a few things with the fiber that we found. And one of the things that we encourage is you need to go back and practice this. This is one of those things that, I lived up by Yosemite for about 5 or 6 years, and I was on a volunteer fire department up there. And I'll tell you, what a fun opportunity. But what we would do is we'd take the trucks out and pull everything out. And for lack of a better term, play with it, hook the hoses up, take the jaws of life, and people would donate cars and we'd chop them up. Yeah. But anytime whenever we're doing something, we need to work on mastering it, and we need to practice. And so even if you come to a class and you do it once in class, that gives you an introduction. But it is one of those things where you have to keep doing it. And you have to make that time to say, you know what, I'm going to go try this, or I'm going to do this. And it's the people that do those things that really tend to excel in a field because they're understanding what can go wrong, how to overcome that, and they don't get out on the job and all of a sudden find out that, they forgot a part or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I encourage them to go practice, with their own equipment.
Yeah.
And, they can log in, they can go through exercises on this equipment. And one of the things that I found with online training that I didn't really think about, but has been a really good part of it is when you're in a classroom full of people, and we do classes where we may do a class that's company specific, and we may do a class that's public. Like the one I did this week, we had people from all over the country and actually a few people from elsewhere in the world joining in. And people get worried that they're asking a question that everybody else knows the answer to.
Yeah.
I've learned, I just ignore, I've spent most of my time over the last 20 some odd years up talking in front of groups, and I am sure I am wrong on a whole bunch of stuff, but I try and figure it out. I try not to be wrong. And if somebody corrects me, hey, that's great. I know better now. Yeah. But most people, they don't want to ask a question that's going to make them look stupid.
Yes.
And what they don't realize is not asking the questions, not asking the questions the worst thing.
Yeah.
So by having a chat window where people can send messages directly to me, what I've discovered is people will ask questions that they wouldn't ask in a group of people. And especially within an organization, because oftentimes within organizations, we find that there's somebody that is viewed as the expert. And they want to show that they're the expert. And so they're going to ask leading questions that they know the answer to. They're going to try and ask a question to trip up, stump the chump, trip up the instructor.
Yeah.
But from a classroom management standpoint and making sure everybody gets the best information that they need, I've really found that with the online training, it's given us this ability to allow people to ask questions without that fear of looking stupid.
Yeah. Well, that's a big benefit because those questions are the ones that need to be asked, that don't get asked.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah. And that's something.
Another part of it is, I've got racks of equipment. I've got drawers, cabinets full of test equipment. So if I'm traveling, I can only carry so much with me. And if I'm paying for every ounce of material that's getting shipped, I'm very conscientious of what I'm taking. We had somebody in the class yesterday ask about, hooking up different types of fiber. And I said, you know what, after we get done with class, because they take a test after class, I always like to make sure they get started on that on time. I said, well, you're starting the test. Let's go check this out. So I started grabbing parts off the shelf and we put together a little science fair experiment to test that out. And that's not the kind of thing that we would really be able to do in a hotel conference room or something, because we wouldn't have that equipment with us.
Yeah, you don't have the equipment. You wouldn't have just none of it. You wouldn't have, like you can do there. You can simulate things that they might have questions around.
Yeah,
that's really cool. That's really cool. So, what do you miss about the in-person training other than being with people?
First off, I miss talking to people, and I miss the interaction that we see between the students, because oftentimes when we take a break or something, you see a tremendous amount of exchange between people in the class. And there have been classes where people have done a good job within Zoom of realizing that they can send a message to all the attendees. And you'll see, from time to time, conversations start picking up where people are going back and forth within class in a good way, not picking at each other or anything. So that's a big one. And in fact, lunchtime was probably one of those times where people lightened up quite a bit, and there was some exchange of information. So on my website, we've put a discussion board. We're still trying to get that, some momentum behind that, but getting people to share some information in there. I miss going to places. I've been to, I went to a steel plant in Mobile, Alabama, or Montgomery, Alabama, Mobile, Alabama, that makes sheet steel, and they'd bring in these big blocks from and from Germany, 50,000-pound blocks of steel, heat them up for a day, and then roll them out into sheet metal.
Wow.
And I love that. I mean, I
Oh,
love that
yeah.
kind of stuff. I went to a plant, having been on the fire department, so they made pumps for fire trucks. They made fire hydrants. I've been to nuclear power plants. I've been to, all these places that, there's a network, and they need somebody to, connect them up or troubleshoot their problem. So I've gotten the opportunity to get out and see some pretty cool places. I can tell you, I probably would not have been in Manila had I, not been doing this type of work. And I don't know if they've got these things called jeepneys down there, and they took surplus Jeeps and stretched them out, and that's, buses. So all those kinds of things, wouldn't have seen it had I not had the chance to get out and do the traveling.
Yeah, that is cool, and it is the interesting places that you've gotten to visit because of it. Because most people don't realize that a facility like that or something is just one big data center. Really, when you look at any of those that you mentioned, just the information. If you did nothing more than the computers that are spread around in one of those places, there's a lot of data moving. But then when you think about all the monitoring systems and everything that have to move that data around, and then when you look at the chemical processing and some of the other kinds of food processing where you've got continuous flow, you just look at anything. You look at making potato chips, French fries. You look at, making a chemical of some sort. Even in a small, 40,000 square foot facility, you can have a very complex network system that has to run flawlessly if you want to make good product, or if you want to keep people safe and everything else.
Well, and that's, a lot of these organizations we went into, there was zero downtime.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't that we could take a switch down or a router down for a period of time. I mean, they were up, they had to be up 100% of the time. And so a problem becomes critical very quickly. And I remember early on in my career, I went to a paper mill in southern Georgia, and the mill was shut down because they could not download the jobs. And so we started digging around, and I found that it was a cable that had been pinched underneath a floor tile. And we pulled the cable out, we replaced it. All of a sudden they were able to log in, start running jobs again. And so it's those types of things that can shut an organization down. And this has kind of been the balance of, going out and doing troubleshooting jobs is always fun.
Yeah.
But one of the challenges is it becomes like being a fire department. You can't schedule, you're not going to schedule a heart attack or something. Yeah. So you don't know when you're going to have it, and you need resources available that are capable of taking care of that problem immediately when it does happen. Yeah. And so for a small organization, from a scheduling standpoint, it's very difficult to have a group of highly talented people around that are waiting for a problem to occur. Mm-hmm. And there's a movie that my oldest son really enjoyed, and I saw Hell Fighters with John Wayne. And they run around putting out oil well fires. Well, they've got all this equipment. You have to have enough oil well fires to keep all those people employed and, be able to purchase that equipment. So what we found was that, training goes a long ways toward preventing those problems.
Yes.
Making sure people are properly trained on the equipment and capable of using that equipment. Just buying it, putting it on the shelf isn't going to help you. You got to be able to know how to use it and you have to continually use it. And that's where one of the things that we found with online training was, when I first started my career, we were doing these 5-day classes, and you could see like gray matter pouring out of people's ears by day 3.
Yes.
It was just information overload. So one of the things that we found is that when we do training, and I do for even companies here in Seattle, we do it, quite a bit of remote training where we will do iterative training. Every month we'll do a few hours.
Yeah.
And they can bring their problems in. And when it's their problem, it means a lot, it means that much more to them than a problem I make up.
Yeah.
We work on that problem, we solve it, they build their skills a little bit, they take that back, they apply it, then they come back the next month. And we go in and we do a little more training, and we do a little more training. And they're able to bring questions in, and we're able to experiment with things and work on getting things better and better.
Wow, you really become part of their overall improvement process by addressing those problems and then helping them resolve them and use the equipment better ultimately, but it is to resolve their problems and make things work better.
Exactly. Yep. And what's kind of fun is when I can get into the role of sitting back and being almost more of a mentor, and sitting back and saying, I want you to go work on this. So one of the things is I'm always looking at, how can we push this forward a little bit more? And this friend of mine that I borrowed this Kubota from while we were redoing our yard, his son has gotten involved in doing 360 video.
Yeah.
So they did a video for Washington State Department of Health, and to give the staff at a facility an idea of what it's like from the patient's perspective.
Yeah.
And they shot it in 360 video. And so they use a VR headset. They actually send these VR headsets out.
Yeah.
And the people put them on and they're immersed in that. So what I did was I figured out how I could load Zoom on here. So now when I'm working with some of these clients and we've got a Zoom meeting and it's really less on video on me, but them showing me, I can put this on and join the Zoom meeting. And I'm looking at an entire wall of their network traffic. I can see a video of them. So I can sit back in the chair here and be sitting back watching their environment. And in fact, on some of these testers back here, we have cameras. So we can send somebody out in the field and say, hey, go out to this wiring closet and show me that server right over to your right. And they can move the camera over there.
Wow.
There's a company called RealWear that I got to play around with a little bit of their equipment. They have a head-mounted Android device that has a camera, has a head-mounted display. And so the idea is that you can look right over the shoulder of the person that's doing the work. So now, if I'm not sitting on an airplane or in a hotel room, if I can do a training class where I can come out here, I can do the class, but either after class, the day before, I can work with somebody. Now I'm taking that time that I normally would have been sitting on an airplane or traveling, and I can make better use of that time in working with clients.
Yeah.
So that's the other big piece of it is when you're traveling, there is a tremendous amount of lost time.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I didn't travel nearly like you did, but in one of my heavy travel years, I figured it out that I spent over 90 days in the plane, time in the plane. When you look at how much flight time you have, you're on a plane. And when people are on, and the other thing that if you don't travel a lot, you don't understand business travelers until you're one of them. And you're like the sheep going into the pen, into the plane on Monday morning and back on Thursday or Friday, because the people in first class are usually pulling out a laptop, getting their stuff and starting to work because that's their office for part of the year.
Yep. Yes.
Yeah. It's crazy.
That's always been a hard one as much as I would love to be able to work on the plane. It was always hard because after I've been teaching all day and you get to the airport and you get on the plane, it's like, I just want to sleep or I want to watch a movie or, and that's where actually having these, I thought, I could watch a movie and, just be immersed in my own little world. But it's, then you get the person next to you that wants to talk. And I mean, I love to talk, but I became very antisocial on the plane. It's like I
Yeah.
put on my Bose
Yep.
QC15s, and
Yeah.
and how many people I had to get new ear pads. I wore the ear pads off of my Bose
Oh,
headphones,
wow. Wow.
but
Yeah.
it's yeah, it's fun. Yeah, I remember watching Up in the Air with George Clooney
Yeah.
and things hitting way too close to home.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's so I think that by doing this, I mean, what I do is we start the class like this month. We start the class on a West Coast start time, and next month we'll start on an East Coast start time. So we start at 5 a.m.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, if I fly to the East Coast and I have to get there, get to the hotel, then wake up at not 5 a.m. but 4 a.m.
Yeah.
West Coast time.
Yeah.
There's that jet lag in there.
Yeah.
Well, if I get out of bed and have breakfast, make some coffee, and come out here to do the class, it's not as bad.
Yeah.
And I can do that day after day after day. So I think I do a better job on that first morning.
Yeah.
Because I didn't have that travel day before as well.
Yeah.
So
that's cool, because it is, when we look at and we talk about, COVID and all the remote and all this other junk, there's a lot of people that are, are really like the remote work, and a lot of people really poo-poo the remote. There's a lot of different around it, but really technology is enabling us to do so much more remotely that it's hard to deny that that remote work or remote training like this is going to be effective, because I've thought a lot as you talk about augmented reality, and I've spent time in the oil fields. I've spent time in a lot of different places looking at work, and I think about, okay, I'm in the middle of nowhere in an oil field, and I've got a bulldozer that doesn't work for some reason. And am I going to wait 14 hours for the technician, or 4 days for the technician to come out? Or do I put that Android device on, like you're saying, that looks at the thing, and my technician back at Caterpillar, where you probably want the smartest person in the room to help you, that they're on the phone with the guy that knows what this end of a wrench looks like and can fix things, but it's not an expert, says this is what you do. And the augmented reality part of it can even be overlaying diagrams and junk like that. And you think about what this could really, how it can change the way that we work in a positive manner, and to help, really everyone be able to do their jobs better. It's phenomenal.
Well, and how many, and that's one of the things that we point out with these, like the Fluke analyzers and the NetAlly analyzers and the NetScout analyzers that we work with, is that they do have the ability to remotely, somebody can view the screen.
Yeah.
And so that whole idea of that I could be out there, we could take an entry-level person and have them out in the field, and we could set it up so that I could jump right over their shoulder and be looking at what they're doing. And now they can get that information. So that guy at CAT that is helping, we can have that person that has all that knowledge. How many people can he help in a day, or she can help?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And that's, and that's one of the things is when we have that person sitting on an airplane, we are we're not underutilizing that resource.
Mm-hmm.
And we're burning that resource out.
Yeah. Yeah. Because you don't last years and years and years on those kind of things. And you are right. And I even go back to when I was running manufacturing plants, and you'd have CNC machines, or you would have, lasers that were cutting metal, and those kind of higher dollar machines. And those technicians that had to fix those, they were flying and they were on the road all the time. And if they could be more, you figure out the way to remotely do even a portion of that, it's a huge savings on everyone, because oftentimes they're in Elgin, Illinois, and you need them in New Mexico tomorrow. and they're not going to be done for 2 days. But if you got a problem that's really simple that they could diagnose and say, okay, get these pieces coming, and when I get there, we're going to fix it, or show them how to fix it without it. Everybody wins. Everybody wins.
And the other part of that is that you can't develop that knowledge without experience.
Yes.
And so it's, am I never going to travel again? No, absolutely. I will travel again.
Yeah.
Am I going to travel like I did before? No. And it's, you have to get that experience. You have to go out and work on the problems.
Yes.
But also, I'm waiting for a shipment of fiber, that I ordered today or a few days ago to come in today. We've got these little splitters that are used for fiber to the home. Well, we talk about them, but I go out and buy that stuff. And I take time when I'm not teaching, developing material, to set up tests, to try things out. And that's part of what is important for me to do, is to constantly be pushing my abilities forward. And again, can I do that when I'm sitting on an airplane? It's a lot harder. I'm a very hands-on, got to do it kind of person. So me spending time out building some little experiment that then I can record and make a video out of.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the other part, is realizing what is it that we can create a YouTube video. I do these really short how-tos, because when I look at my stats on YouTube, most people watch, 2 minutes, maybe 5 minutes, maybe, if it's really good, the first 7.
Yeah.
And that's where having live training becomes really important. Is I'll look at, if we do a webcast, people stay on. People stay on for 4 hours. For some of these trainings that we do, they're free. Doesn't cost them anything. They could leave anytime. But I have to be engaging enough. I have to show them enough things that they're going, oh, well, this might stay. But if we watch it, how long somebody watches that same video on YouTube, it's 10 minutes. Yeah. And so we don't want to go all the way to where we just record everything and say, hey, just watch that.
No. I think you're right. And you have to get it in the short, they have to be short, impactful, and doing like that. But that's an interesting look at it too, is that the live stream and the people will stay on for hours and hours. And you're right, it still has to be interesting. You still have to do it. So you have work in different ways with video than you do in person. That's for sure.
And we were talking before we got going with this, just how you split all that up. There's some people that want to hear it in audio. There's some people that may end up listening to this, through headphones. And that's one reason why, when I first started doing this, having a good microphone, right? Having good audio, because not everyone's going to watch it. And boy, you can lose people. Good internet, everything's the video's got to be good. The audio's got to be good. Watching TV, we have very high expectations. Now, one of the things that I'm looking at, how do we roll it in, is I've got companies, here in the Seattle area that are more than happy to let me come out and play at their facilities, do some testing. So what I'm starting to do is bring that video camera in there with me where I'm allowed, and record things out in the field. So instead of it all being me standing up here talking, we can interleave some, a video. And we joined in. Rick Steves does a little thing from up there in Edmonds every Monday, and we sat in on the one that he did this week. And a good portion of it was him playing YouTube segments that they had recorded in various countries, and then talking about them. Yeah, and that turns out to be a pretty good way to deliver some of that.
Yeah, I'm writing that down. Yep. Got some more ideas on this. Well, Mike, it's just awesome sitting here and getting to talk to you about this, because I mean, from watching you build out your studio to talking about it, I still have I still feel like I'm a lighting doofus here, because my lighting makes me look all. I mean, I'm pale, but I'm not this pale. But it's just so cool to hear how you've taken this and built the technology around doing it, and then you're weaving things like you were just talking about, actual video, helping people troubleshoot their own problems, and how you're transitioning it into something that actually is better for the end user by giving a more personalized approach.
Yes. The tricky part is that, that COVID gave us a big kick, right? And luckily we were already ready. I mean, this was when it came to doing it remotely. We were working on doing it before this happened.
Yeah.
People talk about getting back to normal. People talk about, never getting back. We're going to find something in the middle. What was it? One of the banks or one of the investment companies, the CEO came on and said, everyone's going to be back by September. We're paying for office space in New York. You are making a New York salary. You're going to be back in New York. And they understand that on a case-by-case basis that needs to be adjusted. And some people, I think, that hands-on in-person learning cannot be beat. And that is something we'll always address and take care of. I think that I can guarantee you that if you buy one of these testers, within 3-4 weeks of buying the tester, I can get you trained. You don't have to wait for me to come to, to some city in New York or something to do the class. 4 weeks, we're doing a class. And so, it all depends on what you're looking for and maintaining a balance of that.
Yeah. And I look at, when you look at this kind of what I believe will be, and that's kind of extreme back to the way it was, everybody coming to work. I look at someone like you look at a large company, and we see them here in Amazon or Microsoft or something like this. If I was them, I would figure out how to get a hybrid workspace, work week environment, and drop down to, 2 days one week, 3 days the next week, something like that. People sharing spots where you slide in. You and I have a spot we share. We know each other. We maybe one day a month we're in there together, but just kind of high-fiving and stuff. And just think what you could do on a company like that in square footage that you need to use on an annual basis. And then you go, not just that, but you look at, if companies are trying to get environmental, take your workforce off the road 3 days a week. And what would that do? Live it here. So look at, somebody really wants to go green, right? You're going to go green. And I've got 500,000 people working for me across the world. I just cut my, they're not going to work in so many days a year. And you figure, okay, so many of those people drive their own car. And then you look at a place like here in Seattle, how much would it be if you took 1/3 of the people off the road every day? This is the impact of this thing overall globally would be insane.
Well, and then there's all those things. We were just, Jennifer and I were just talking to somebody about, that they said, hey, it used to be when I took a break at work, I'd go, maybe go walk around the building, or I'd go talk to somebody in their cube. Now, when I'm working from home and I go to take a break, I might go throw the laundry in. Or it's dry right now, I'm going to run out and mow the lawn. And so I'm going to come back. I'm still going to get the work done. And I'm using that break. So, and then at the end of the day, you're not thinking, oh man, I got to get that laundry done. I got to do this. I got to do that. And so, but just like not everyone learns the same, not everyone works the same.
Exactly.
And there are a lot of folks that really want that structure. I go in, there are folks that time in the car. I would rather, I've said for the last 25 years, I would rather get on an airplane, fly somewhere, stay in the hotel where I'm teaching, walk down, do that, than sit in traffic. I commuted for a while. It sucks the soul out of me.
It is.
And because I would see, there'd be that guy that would come zipping up on, you'd be in the right lane waiting to, I lived south of, down by Federal Way. you'd be sitting there waiting to get off on 405. And then there'd be the same guy every morning would act like he didn't even know that, that was where the turn was. And then he'd get up to the front and cut in front of everyone. It's like, you do this every morning.
Yeah.
And so it just,
yeah, that traffic, getting rid of it, I think it'd be good. We'll see what happens. But, Mike, it's been great to having you online. And if people want to get a hold of you, want to look up your training, where should they go?
So where they should go is if they're interested in the training that we do on the Fluke equipment. It's called the Certified Cable Test Technician. So it's cctttraining.com is that one. So there's 3 T's in the middle. And then my company website is nps-llc.com. Okay. And unfortunately, the National Park Service had grabbed NPS when I started the business. And, they had Gov, and they eventually let go of .com, but it's nps-llc.com, and that's my website. And
awesome.
We got links to videos and things like that out there, and you can look up.
Awesome. And on YouTube, what's your channel on YouTube?
Mike Pennacchi.
Mike Pennacchi. Awesome, man.
Oh no,
awesome.
Let's see. YouTube is Packet Analyzer. That's
Packet Analyzer. There we go. There we go. So we got that. So if they want to go out and look at your network analyzer videos and the things like you have there, it's a Packet Analyzer on YouTube, and NPS-LLC for yours. And your training is CC, 2 T's, and then training.com.
Yep.
Awesome.
And that's where we do all of our Fluke certification training.
Awesome. Well, thanks for being here today, Mike. It's been awesome talking to you, and still in awe of the studio that you've built for this training. It's awesome, and I can't wait to see the next time and get to see the upgrades and everything else that's going on in your VR headset. And
next time, that's putting a 180-degree camera in, right? So I want people to feel like they're right here.
Oh, good stuff. Good stuff, man. Well, thanks. And thanks everyone for listening to us on the Faces of Business. Hope you enjoyed this. Come back again next week. We're going to have some more awesome guests talking about just interesting stuff, and we'll come back. Thanks a lot. Bye, everyone.